Hello, nerds! I am here today with a very overdue edition of Playing with Flashcards, and I am super excited because today I am talking about one of my favorite plays written by my all-time favorite playwright. And for you guys who know me well, you've guessed it, today I am talking about The Seagull by Anton Chekhov. The translation I read was done by Lawrence Senelik, and this is his beautiful anthology right here. So if you ever want to check it out, I totally recommend it. It's a very readable translation, and he has some really interesting discussions and notes about each one of the plays as you read through the book. All right, diving into the flashcards. As I mentioned, The Seagull was written by Anton Chekhov. He wrote it in 1895, and it had its premiere in 1896 at the Alexandrinsky Theater in St. Petersburg, Russia. It is called a comedy, and it really, really is, but I'll talk more about why it is later. And it was made famous by a later production at the Moscow Art Theater. A little bit about Chekhov, who, the more I learn about him, just the more he becomes one of my very favorites in theater history. Chekhov lived from January 29th, 1860 through July 15th, 1904. He was a doctor by trade, and he is quoted as having said, "Medicine is my lawful wife, and literature is my mistress." He was first noticed as a writer of short stories. The Bear is a very famous one of his. And his first play was Ivanov, which he wrote in a fortnight, and he was very amused by his success. He didn't really think that he was Playwright. I think the story basically goes that he got dared, or it was a bet, or someone said, "Hey, could you write a play?" Something very, like, one-off. And he did it, and it was huge. It was a huge success for him. Even though Ivanov was a great success, he would swear off theater after The Seagull was presented in St. Petersburg in 1896. He didn't take theater back up until 1898 when Stanislavski convinced him to have The Seagull show at the Moscow Art Theater. Chekhov was often criticized for the women in his plays having the names of actresses, or even the fact that a lot of them were actresses. In his real life, he was a bit obsessed with actresses. He even married one, and they had an interesting marriage. He didn't see her very often, which seemed to work really well for both of them, but they had a lot of letters between them, and their love and admiration for each other was very noticeable. Anyway, sidetrack. His most famous plays include The Seagull, The Cherry Orchard, Three Sisters, and Ivanov. And sadly, he died of tuberculosis, which also claimed his mom. But he died of that while he was in Germany on a little mini vacation with his wife, Olga. All right, launching into the characters of The Seagull. Here we go. There are 6 females and 7 males in a traditional production. You have Arkadina, or Irina, and she is the fading actress. You have her son Treplyov, or Konstantin. He is a writer, or an aspiring writer. We have Sorin, who is Irina's brother. We have Nina, who is an aspiring actress and the love of Konstantin, but she is in love with Trigorin. One thing about The Seagull is that it is full of its love triangles. There is Shamrayev, who is the overseer, and then his wife Polina, who is in love, here's another triangle coming up, with Dorn, the doctor. We also have Masha, who is one of my very favorite of Chekhov's characters. She is the daughter of Shamrayev, maybe the daughter of Dorn, and Polina. She is loved by Medvedenko, but she is in love with Konstantin. We have Trigorin, who's a famous writer, and he is loved by both Irina and Nina. Dorn, the doctor, Medvedinko, a school teacher who is in love with Masha and later is the husband of Masha, and then you have your just your kind of like staff characters, kind of 2-line, 3-line characters of Yakov, the cook, and the housemaid. A little bit about the plot of The Seagull. The Seagull follows the lives of young people eager to live and have what they don't have, and older people jaded by the lives that they live and still not happy with what they have achieved. Largely, the plot follows Konstantin, Irina, Nina, and Trigorin and the destructive dynamics of their relationship. Where and when? There it is. Soren's country estate in Russia. The play occurs in the late 1800s with a 2-year time lapse between Acts 3 and 4. A little bit about the themes. Something interesting about The Seagull is that all the main events happen between the acts. One source notes that what draws the audience in to us watching is having the characters deal with those events on stage. So major event happens off stage. The effect that it has on the characters happens on stage. That same source also noted that Chekhov revolutionized theater by focusing on drama between people in the words that they speak and not just in their actions. A little more about theme. The themes deal with artists and life and love, with self-evaluation and the lack of self-evaluation, deals with existentialism and the meaning of life. It deals with unrequited love. That's a huge part of this play, with banality. It deals with, again, existential crisis. And it has a lot of little pointers back to Hamlet, especially when you're looking at the relationship between Konstantin, Arkadina, his mother, and Trigorin, her lover, and then kind of his rival in an artistic sense. Konstantin's rival in an artistic sense. There are a lot of symbols in The Seagull. Of course, the name itself, the title, I should say, being one of them, even though actually the play is called The Gull. It's not really, there's not an existence of seagull in the Russian language. They would have just been called gulls. Chekhov is a master, and that is evident in the use of, in many ways, but especially in the use of the seagull. It's a layered symbol. In Act 1, the seagull is viewed as free and beautiful, a part of the lake and the peace of Soren's country estate. But in Act 2, the seagull begins to be a little more foreboding. It foreshadows the suicide of Konstantin, and also the way that Trigorin is eventually going to destroy Nina in a certain sense. Essentially, one source noted very well that the seagull symbolizes destruction at the hands of loved ones. In short, it symbolizes both freedom and dependence. The lake is also another huge symbol in this play. It represents various things to each character. It also speaks to Chekhov's desire for new forms of theater and his push towards naturalism on stage. A little bit more about symbols. Weather is another very Chekhovian symbol to use. He's known for using it to set the tone of his plays. It's notably alive in The Seagull, especially in the final scene. The storm signals major changes and also the sad ending of the play. Other just notable thoughts and opinions on The Seagull and Chekhov that I found as I was reading. Leonid Andreev, he used a word, I believe it's pronounced panpsychism, Panpsychism, however you say that. It is the animation of everything in a Chekhov play, from distant music to the chirp of a cricket to munching on an apple, each contributing equally to the play's total effect. That's what he had to say about what that is. And that is something that Chekhov really does and that he takes his time with in his plays, is these very natural elements that he includes in his work. Senelik, the translator of the version I read, he talks about talent in the Seagull, what talent is, being a touchstone by which the characters evaluate themselves and one another in the Seagull. Chekhov describes talent as the ability to distinguish between important and unimportant evidence. The point is that talent exists independently of human relations and can be consummated in isolation. To be talented is not necessarily to be a superior person. And as you read the play, you really see how the character of Konstantin is very afflicted with the idea of what talent is and what talent he does possess versus which talent he doesn't possess. He's very wrapped up in that. Okay, and getting towards the end, just some of my final thoughts on the play. You know, my very first draw to the Seagull when I read it was Unrequited Love. It was something that at the time I was just really starting to experience. And then by the time I got into grad school and actually had the opportunity to play the role of Nina, I was very consumed by having a lot of experiences with unrequited love. However, now I read this play, or at least this last time I read this play, and what really stuck out to me was focus, goal, and talent. Chekhov says this through Dorn. He also says it through Dorn in the play, but he specifically says, Trepliev has no fixed goals, and that's what destroys him. Talent destroys him. And I just thought that was really interesting, you know, as I'm trying to focus on exactly what I'm doing, not only as an actor but as an artist. I realized that I can be very scatterbrained, and that, you know, focus is what Trepliev needed. And just reading the play this time reminded me that focus and giving talent kind of a goal is a good idea, I guess. Chekhov is, like I said, my all-time favorite playwright. And earlier I mentioned, you know, The Seagull is a comedy. And for a long time I was like, I don't get that, you know, maybe it's just Russian comedy is dark or something. But I'm starting to. I'm going to claim that I totally get Chekhov. I hope that it'll be a while before I get him so I can keep reading and keep exploring what I think about his work. But I have to say that as I'm getting older, I understand the comedy of the play better. You know, it's about the irony. It's a very ironic writing, ironic humor that is in the lines. It's like Chekhov is as ironic as hipsters try to be. So it's like he's like the original hipster, or one of the original hipsters. I don't know. All I know is that I love this play, and if you haven't ever read it, pick it up, give it a read. If you haven't ever seen it, see a good production of it, because if you see a bad production of Chekhov, I think it will ruin you forever. However, if you see a good production of Chekhov, you will fall in love. And also, if you know of any companies that devote their entire canon of work to Chekhov, then please send their information along to me, because if I could spend my acting life doing Chekhov, then I would be a very happy woman. Anyway, that is it for this edition of Playing with Flashcards, and I will catch you guys next time. Bye!